Dr. Seed is really doing so much great work in the area of healthy families. We'll also dive into that really needs to be healthy caregivers as well. And moms, a lot of the times, are those caregivers. She's known as Holistic Mom MD on social media. Um, and she's written a series of children's books. I'm going to let her tell you a little bit more about all that. She is the director of education for Documenting Hope and Noel. So if you guys are from the pediatric community, I'm sure you know those organizations. And her children host the Holistic Kids Show. And I think a lot of us who are interested in working or have kids or in pediatrics really want to know how to involve them in a fun way in taking care of their health. So I am so pleased that Dr. Z is with us here today, and welcome to the FMC community.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so incredibly honored to be here. This is, my huge passion to spread this message that this entire holistic functional medicine integrative lifestyle can be fun, right? And can be doable and cost effective. I love coaches and because they're absolutely necessary to actually taking, what we know in the science to practicality.
Yes.
Right? Because we can be sitting and talking about the science all we want. I mean, I've written 8 books, working on the 9th. So like I know science, but then how are we actually going to bring this to life? And that is so thank you so much for this huge honor. And I go ahead and start my presentation. A little bit more about me. I was, born and raised in Naperville, Illinois. I've been here in the Midwest almost all my life. And what is crazy is that I had all of the same bad habits that have led most adults and children down that road to chronic disease. I was, taking cans of soda to school every morning, and I was drinking, all of the juices, eating all of the cereals and the strudels and everything new that came out. It was in my fridge. But I struggled with weight issues, hair loss, struggled with severe digestive issues, but I was just told that was my new normal. Just continue on that hamster wheel like everybody else. Sorry, you just stamped with the diagnosis. I was given a medication, and I lived on with life. But the thing is, I continued that way until residency. And in residency is really where, the high stress, the terrible food, the constant environmental toxins, like we're like bombarded in all these different ways. And my body could not handle it. I was a new mom, a new wife, a new resident, all at the same time. Me and my husband were both working 80-hour work weeks. And that is when, again, trying to keep my head above water, my chronic conditions continued. And lupus, Hashimoto, severe digestive issues, until one day that hamster wheel that I was on, just trying to keep my head above water, came to an abrupt stop. My husband had this gut inclination. Can you go check up on my child in daycare? Our child in daycare. I walked back down there and, thankfully it was attached to the hospital. And I walked into every mother's worst nightmare. The daycare provider was actually sitting in that same rocking chair, back and forth, back and forth. The eerie silence was broken by my child's in the back, and in the corner, there was my child. He was arms and legs were tied down in a receiving blanket. His pacifier was in his mouth. His Winnie the Pooh blanket was tied so rapidly around his face that his eyes were bloodshot. His face was swollen. And I immediately rescued and I ran out. On that day, the God universe saved my child. On that day, I made the solemn promise that I promise I'm going to take care of these kids the best that I know how. But then I had to take a step back as me as a family physician. My husband's a family physician. My brother's an interventional cardiologist. My sister's a pediatric ICU physician. I have all these doctors in my family, but none of us really knew how that we could truly take care of ourselves. And this is where it was like an aha moment. that I needed to take control of my own health. And that's when, as a physician, I went to one doctor, another doctor, trying to say, I have all these chronic health conditions, severe fatigue, irritability, digestive issues. I was then also diagnosed with lupus and Hashimoto's, and I knew the lupus could one day take my life. And I'm like, I'm not going to let that happen. But then what was their solution? Their solution was they were going to give me more medications. And specifically, those medications, side effect was death. And I was like, wait, that's what I'm trying to prevent. So how am I supposed to take care of myself if I don't even know how to take care of myself? And the only way that we really knew how to take care of ourselves was through these medications. And that is when I changed, my entire world. Right out of residency, I joined this medical practice where under one roof, there was me, an OBGYN, an internist, an exercise physiologist, nutritionist, counseling, chiropractor, massage therapy, health coaches. And that's when I'm like, oh my gosh, you can actually treat somebody from the inside out and not just compartmentalizing it that we have been taught in residency. And by doing that and slowly incorporating that's when I started Holistic Mom MD, because I'm like, if it's good for me, then it must be good for my children. And this is something I want to implement, not just with myself, but as a family, like together. And so especially I continued, again, I wrote a couple books, and then the pandemic hit. And before that, the kids were involved. Obviously, we were talking about it. I was incorporating it. But when the pandemic hit is really when my mission turned into our mission. And because they were home, so guess what? We talked about it even further. We got them involved. And that's when, they started the podcast and now they have a book deal. So there's so many things like, you're probably listening to that story. And you're like, oh my God, I can't even do any of that. Like, that's too complicated. Like, how did you even get everybody involved? But that is where the dynamic needs to stop. It's because of the fact that unfortunately, we are living in a society where we look at all of the things that everybody else is doing, and we're like, wait, like, I don't have that in my life. Like, so it's like we're focusing on all the things that, we're doing wrong, or we're focusing on all the judgment, especially us as moms. Let's like bring this back to moms for a second, right? Because us as moms, if we work, we get shunned down upon. If we don't work, we get shunned down upon. If like, no matter if you put your kids in 100 different sports, then you get shunned down upon. And then if if you don't, then you also look down upon. It's like we never get a break. And that is where we need to now shift this. And especially when you look at the health world, there's so much. There's like, thousands of books written on health, and trying to incorporate all of that into your everyday daily routine. I feed a family of 9 on a daily basis. So I have 9 people that live with me. And so it's a lot. And trying to incorporate all of those pieces into my everyday daily routine and then get judged, and it's too much. But we need to start focusing on the positive, what we can do, right? So focus on what you can accomplish, because we do have the power. And it really starts with educating and empowering, specifically us as coaches. Like we educate and empower them, right? And that is really powerful. I mean, when right out of residency, when I joined this medical practice, and I had this one patient, and she had myasthenia gravis, psoriasis, lichen planus, Sjogren's, Hashimoto's, mood disorders, ADHD, hormonal issues, digestive issues. And she worked at the Family Dollar store. And she also, at the gas station, right? So those are her part-time jobs. So she was just coming to me because she was on the highest dose of Mestinon, and they wanted to put her on Imuron. And she looks at me and she's like, I just want to do something that's cost effective, that can help to lower my chronic, like help me put me back in charge of my own health. And so just everything that I'm going to talk to you today is just that. It's easy, fast, cost effective, doable for anybody, no matter your age or demographic. And Eileen, specifically, when she started to incorporate these simple changes, simple. And these are, again, like bells and whistles. Like we can look at all these things in the functional medicine world and say, I didn't do all this, I didn't do all that. But the simple, basic things that we empower our patients and families with are the most powerful. So just by doing those basics that are cost effective, time effective, and fun, she was able to, now she no longer deals with myasthenia gravis. And it was even to find her soulmate, as a scuba diver instructor. Like, how crazy is that, right? And so the state, unfortunately, we are not alone. Our state of our children were suffering. Their mental health is suffering. And we really have to recognize, okay, what is actually going on? And we know that chronic disease is on a rise because of all of this toxic load. But either we can be led or we can lead. Either we can make these decisions for our families or we can let someone else to make these decisions for our families. Because guess what? The world around us is doing an amazing job trying to manipulate our brains, our taste buds to fit their agenda, right? And this is where we need to take charge. As, a coach, when you talk to your families and with your own families, we need to show them that, yes, right now, the lifestyle that you guys we're living is actually being manipulated because the food industry, right? And then now the cell phone and the social media and the technology is all leading us down a different path that is not of health. And so this is where I started to educate and empower the world, especially in my residency because I had these babies and I knew I needed to start parenting them that way. So I started learning more about parenting and I started educating myself. So I've been studying now parenting for the last 15 years. And then I wrote my next book called the Holistic RX for Kids, Parenting Healthy Brains and Bodies in a Changing World, because I realized that when you start to raise holistically your family, you can, like, the kids and family, actually their brains start working better, their bodies start working better, they're able to make better decisions. And guess what? That overall, it's a win for you. It actually decreases your stress. So let's go on and talk about all of these different pieces briefly. So the blueprint to healthy families. So this is where role modeling, educating and empowering, being mindful, helping them optimize their decision-making capabilities and gratitude. So it does start with us. Role modeling those behaviors at home and having fun with it, right? We all know, like, the basics of, we're supposed to be eating well, we're supposed to be exercising, we're supposed to be going out in nature. Like, we know all these things, right? This is stuff that we're supposed to be doing. But how can we actually start doing it? We need to start to develop your healing routine and talk about it with your families, right? Like in the morning, immediately when you wake up in the morning, the first thing, you shouldn't be picking this up, right? Like, we shouldn't be picking up our phones. Meditation, gratitude, and develop those with your children and talk to them about it and focus on the basics, keeping it super simple. Because remember, all of those key pieces that we talk about with our patients are really cost effective, if not free, right? So, like, the eating real food. Sorry. I got overly excited there. So eating real food, social health, obviously, if you have to pay for your friends, that's not good. Sleeping, stress management, gratitude, these are all free. And then in the other cases, we just make healthy swaps, and we're going to talk about that. But we know that when a child is born into this world, they have all of these cells and very limited connections. And every touch, every emotion, every experience, every hug, every connection that you have with your child can actually start to form these connections in the brain. And then if we have like if a child lives more of a balanced life, we have more balanced brain and connection. And imbalanced life, imbalanced brain and connections. So even with those routines, starting off young, together with mealtime, right? Family meals is somewhere that anybody can start. And again, focusing on that real food, gardening, cooking together, getting the kids involved in every step of the way, like starting a garden. We know these things are important for us, but then once it starts to become more of like, you know, like a schooling at home, right? Then it's, as parents, we're like, okay, we need to do this because it's the kids need to know where their food comes from, get them involved, and it gets them busy. And you're doing something together because we remember that food, good nutrition is essential for children and us. Food is, there's just molecular information that is actually talking to our cells, and it determines who we are. We are food. You know, even our mothers are food. Like we have literally every cell of our body was developed from food. Like we need food. And so that is the number one tool that we have to impact our brains and our bodies and our social health, spiritual, mental, emotional. But unfortunately, most kids are not eating enough veggies. They're eating more processed foods. That's leading to higher calorie consumption, and then leading to insulin resistance, leading to excessive eating where the child is a child or you are unable to eat, right? You know, when you go to and you know, this is something I talk to the kids about. Like when we go to a restaurant, why do they give you that fluffy bread and or the corn chips? It's because those processed starches go and inhibit the hormone that helps us satiate, which is leptin levels that basically, guess what? Now we are uncontrollable eating. We have to keep on eating. We don't know when we're to stop. And so us as parents and caregivers, we don't want to be in the kitchen all day long. So believe me, like getting them to eat real food so you can stay out of the kitchen so you don't have to deal with all of this craziness is good. But this is what I really want to emphasize. And I feel like this is one huge piece of the puzzle why we cannot get our families on board. And it does take time, and it does take, you know, education and commitment. It doesn't happen overnight. Is the connection between, and it's a strong connection, unfortunately, that we as children also have, that we have to like look within ourselves first and role model these ourselves. And then that's the only way we're going to be able to take this to our families, is we have made a connection between fun food and fake food together. That, for example, let me explain. If we go to a birthday party, don't worry about the ingredients. Don't worry about the oils that they used. We're having fun today. When we go to the amusement park, it's like, oh, don't worry about the ingredients. Don't worry about the, you know, oils. We're having fun today. If we go out to eat, don't worry about the ingredients. Don't worry about the oils. We're going to have fun today. So Halloween celebrations, you know, all of the fake food is directly connected to fun. And we, even as practitioners, we do this too, following that 80-20 rule, right? But the thing is, in some cases, we need to like show that fake food has really no part of our lives. And that 80-20 shouldn't really pertain to fake food and chemicals, because the fact that we can still have fun with real food. And that is where I think the key piece, because right now your children, your families are like, and us are putting together fun food, fake food. But the only time that mom or, you know, our aunt and uncle really care about the real food is when we're home, and that's pretty boring, right? And so helping us find that connection, that, well, guess what? When you go out to eat, let's go look for all of the fun restaurants that are organic, non-GMO. When we go to an amusement park, let's see if we can find some organic, non-GMO. If not, then I'll buy you treats. So you're still having fun, but it's with real food. And that is what is really going to help us go take this to the next level and really create change for our families, is to educate and empower them. And the way that we're going to educate and empower them is by starting here and reading the ingredients, starting with your eyes, or just flipping over the package, helping them read those ingredients. And that's why I have my 4th children's book is coming out in August, called Fake Food versus Real Food, Food Label Detectives, Adam's Healing Adventure Series. And to teach the kids that this food, like when they start reading the labels, they're like, Mom, what is red number 40? What is this? What is that? Go and educate yourself about it. Because the food industry is made up of chemical companies that is made using commercials and, gimmicks to keep us hooked. And kids know, and the kids know that like the shiny, all these things, they're like, oh, the prettier that is, like the more color it is, the rainbow and it's prettier. We want that. How do they know that? Because of the fact that this food system is spending billions of dollars creating customers for life, promoting sickness into old age. And if you can connect that memory, like for example, Easter with its, candies, and Christmas with, it's the sugar, the cane, right? And so cane. And so like it's like, oh my gosh, we're gonna connect now what people are feeling with the junk food, right? Their holidays and fun and family with junk and fake food. And then we do the same thing with Ramadan. Like I said something about like we drink this in Ramadan. It's like a 1 month where we just fast. And it's supposed to be a very spiritual time, but food companies have connected that with an artificial colored drink. And if I just mention it, now people are like outraged. And that is what you want to educate your children, that like we have created, the food companies even created these foods that are connected to even different events. So then you form this connection and then it gets you addicted into life. But this is where educate your families and look at the ingredients. And look, you can find Easter eggs and like all the Easter candy that's healthier, that's right out of organic. And that's what we want to try to now. You can still have that, but change it up for it. Help show your kids and your families the ingredients of these and then the ingredients of different ones, and then have them taste it. And then they'll show you that the real food one tastes 100 times better. It may take some getting used to because obviously sugar has manipulated our brains. All this fake food is leading to insulin and leptin resistance, dysfunctional brain, body behavior, leading to overeating. We know that food is the #1 driver of chronic disease. It's destroying our balance. Educate your families about these things. Show them what these ingredients are doing. And if they don't know what something is, have them go and research it themselves, along with all of these colors that we talked about, how it is hijacking our brains and our children's brains. GMOs, teach them the story. Like my kids love the story. And he actually, my 10-year-old, he comes home one day and he's like, oh, Mama, they were all telling me that, I was eating the food that I eat is weird. And I was like, oh, so what did you say? And he was like, oh, I said, well, at least I'm not eating pipe cleaner glyphosate. So tell them where these things are coming from and how like the GMOs and how glyphosate is really destroying our bodies. Teach them about artificial sweeteners, sugar, and to know that you are going to have to take charge. Us as a coaches and practitioners and moms and caregivers, we are going to have to take charge. Why? They're not going to learn this in school. They're not going to learn this at their doctor's office. They're not going to learn this when they're out and about in a gathering, most likely. Where are they going to learn this? You guys are going to teach this to them. Why? Because of the fact that a sick child is probably the most profitable invention in the history of mankind, right? In America, as Casey Means said. So he recognized that like if we feed into the system, if we don't educate and empower our children, someone else is. And when you have a sick child, they don't die. You just feed them more. You just feed them more medications. They get sick. They go into the hospitals, and it actually just feeds the system. So this is where we need to take in charge. And I was even thinking about this for a second. I was like, when did it turn from like autism awareness month to autism acceptance month? Like, why are we accepting autism? Right? And it's all feeding into that system. Like we need to start to educate our children. And how? By making it simple, easy, cost effective, focusing on two words, real food. Because real food really does optimize our overall health and help the climate and the planet. It, lowers insulin resistance, it balances hormones, it keeps your gut healthy. But then how are you going to actually take that? So now that the kids are educated and your families are educated, right? First, you got to start with yourself. We talked about that. There's nothing that's, and then educating, empowering yourself and then your families, just like what I did. It was very powerful. But then specifically being mindful. And especially with us in this day and age, we are stuck on our devices where there's like 100 different messages that you have to respond back to, and then, all these notifications, and, your attention is divided now 1,000,000,000%. Like we're like so many different places that our attention is divided. And so we need to bring that back to mindfulness. And how is that? By educating ourselves and our families to start to look within, right? How do you feel at this moment? How are you, like, emotionally, physically, psychologically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally? Like, how are you feeling at this moment? And as soon as your body starts to get off balance, we have provided, as coaches, we have provided them, one, they know why that it's getting off balance. It's not like your body is bad, so we're going to fight it with the conventional. Unfortunately, that's what we've been taught in medicine, is like, as soon as your body gets off balance, it's bad. It needs to be put back into balance. I mean, it needs to be basically fixed with a medication, and that's the only way. No, your body, and this is what I've taught my kids, our bodies cannot talk to us in any different way. The way that it can talk to us is if it starts to, if we're starting to feel symptoms. And those symptoms could be due to chronic inflammation. And let me tell you about that. So educate them about different acute versus chronic. What are all the different things that can cause it? And so if your body is off balance, it could be some of these pieces that are out of balance. And the food. And then it's leading to that leaky gut. It's leading to that, chronic inflammation. It's leading to mitochondrial dysfunction. What's happening with the foods that we're eating? Maybe it's that our hormones are out of balance. Our insulin is too elevated because of the fact that, cornflakes is raising your blood sugar level higher than sugar is. Like, isn't that craziness? So and just a story in this piece, and I showed this to my kids, and I've talked to them about being mindful of their symptoms and how they're feeling. So, you're teaching your children how to be, mindful in multiple different levels of, awareness all at once. And then as soon as their bodies go off balance, we've given them the tools that they need to help put them back into balance. And so I first saw this and that's when I'm like, oh my God, this is so powerful. So my 5-year-old, when he was 5 years old, now he's 8, but he came down one day, and for breakfast he started eating. When I came downstairs, I saw that he was eating a bowl of sauerkraut, and I was like, Gossam, why are you eating a bowl of sauerkraut? And he goes, oh mama, I woke up this morning feeling a little agitated. And I think it's because I might have had I had the organic sugar at Nana's house yesterday, and that probably messed my hormones, and it probably my gut's probably not happy. So I'm coming down here so I can feed this. I am giving myself sauerkraut so I can help the good bugs in my belly, and that can help my brain feel better. And so he was able to connect hormonal imbalance, too much sugar, to his gut and all of that. And then And actually, he had the tools that he needed at his disposal as a 5-year-old. Can you imagine if adults can do that? That would be so powerful. That would be so mind-blowing. And to understand that those, like what's going on in your body when you eat processed sugars versus if you eat real food. If you eat processed, your body is like, ups and the insulin goes ups and down. You have those hangry episodes. It leads to increased hunger, appetite, excessive eating because there's no nutrients. They're constantly hungry. And so again, focusing on that real food can help them satiated, they're happier. And this is where like, okay, Dr. Madhya, I get this now, but it's really expensive. That food is so expensive. When I go to the grocery store, it's like terrible. But this is what we have to recognize, that cheap food has been made to be irresistible, has been made for us to continue to want to eat it. So it may be cost effective at the beginning, but guess what? Now you're spending more money on the food quantity. While real food may be cost effective, maybe a little bit more costly, but in the long run, you're eating a lot less of that food. So your families are satiated. They don't need to be snacking all day long. If they truly have their vegetables, clean protein, healthy fats, they have periods where they're not eating. Isn't that shocking for kids? And, I have a house. My oldest is 16. I have 5 boys, and my youngest is 18 months old, 19 months old. And so I have this huge span. Obviously, the younger one is not there, but the old four, they're all home. Guess what? They're not snacking. I come downstairs yesterday. I know that especially I know my 13-year-old, I'm like, did you even have breakfast today? Like, he goes, oh no, I didn't eat it. I'm like, I'm good. I was like, he was intuitive to his body, right? And you're not constantly, I need this, I need that, I need this, I need that. And I actually I stocked the house, but I'm like, they're all home. But I'm like, they're satiated. They're getting things themselves because the processed foods makes them eat more. And there's not that constant struggle in my house that stop eating this, don't eat that, don't eat this, don't eat that. So remember to educate our families about when you start to eat more fake food versus real food, your body gets off balance. And as soon as your body feels a little bit off balance, we have given them the tools that they need to help put their brains back into balance. And that comes to the next piece, optimizing their decisions. And that decision-making is when your bodies are off balance, there's 2 main pieces of decision-making. It's your prefrontal cortex and your amygdala. And you need both of these pieces to make a rational decision. But unfortunately, our imbalanced lifestyles are leading to this chronic inflammation that's affecting our brain, affecting our emotions, our actions. But if you have a family that's, again, this balanced lifestyle, guess what? They have balanced brains. But unfortunately, because of our imbalanced lives, that's leading to imbalances in our brains. And that's why living an optimal lifestyle, living a balanced lifestyle will help us to make our kids even make those rational decisions. And a balanced child is like a huge benefit to society. So they'll make better impacts on decisions, decrease their chronic illnesses, even heal the world. The next thing, again, we talked about briefly at the beginning was gratitude. Because again, instead of all focusing on all the things that the kids can't have, we're going to focus on the things that kids can have. Changing our subconscious from instead of thinking negative all the time to thinking positive. Because remember, society is not going to get you to buy the next new thing unless they tell you how miserable the thing that you have right now is. And they're doing it in all these subliminal messages that, oh my gosh, you don't have this? You need to how are you going to live life? Like, you don't have the next new iPhone with 10 cameras? You need this in your life, right? And so changing our subconscious from immediately thinking negative to thinking positive. And how are we going to do that? Immediately when you wake up in the morning, say 10 things that you're thankful for every day. Over the last 15 years of me practicing this type of medicine, I have found that is the most powerful thing that we can do as physicians, coaches, practitioners, even caregivers, moms, is change our subconscious, and starts with us. Change our subconscious from thinking negative to positive. So that is where you're going to start. But the thing is, take it one step at a time, one day at a time, to recognize that real food is one piece. Go down the list. I have my family's go to vegetables, clean protein, healthy fats to get that fiber, the protein, and the healthy fats that they need. And stock up for success. Yes, they can have everything in the house. And that, guess what? When they can have chips, they can have cookies, they can have everything. You decrease the connection that we have subconsciously made with real food, is that we're constantly fighting with our families. But guess what? If you stock the house up for success, it eliminates that fight. And now the kids even and families have like a positive connection with the real food. Eating the rainbow with all of its benefits. Easy ways of shopping, like making a list. Obviously frozen, there's like Costco and Sam's Club that has a lot of things. Joining like a farmer's market, joining a CSA, less expensive cuts of meat. Even at Whole Foods, they have like a whole chicken that that you can stock up. Even cooking. I like to cook in bulk, and then just leave it. So guess what? Like, it looks like I cook all the time, but I don't, because of the fact that I have lots of leftovers. But finding those substitutions. So whatever your fake food is, finding those healthier alternatives to it. So for example, artificial color, you can use turmeric and beets and spirulina. I like for bright blue or green, right? And then we have a candy, get organic candy. Soda, there's like, sparkling water, or even Olipop, or, the flowers that you have, almond flour, coconut, cassava flour, tiger nut flour, chickpea flour that we use even for holidays. So even, remember, we talked about real food can be fun food. So even during the holidays, swap out and remember, you're like, oh no, that gets really expensive. No, because the fact that when you make a pie with almond flour, they don't eat the entire pie, right? When you use real food ingredients, they actually are satiated with a little bit. So you can cook a little bit, that goes a long way, and have fun with it. Increase the color. Think outside the box. I use like almond flour. In my family, I love using almond flour, right? Or cassava flour or tiger nut flour, like different types of flours. Experiment with it. But if I'm on a rush, I'll take a box of, almond flour. Simple Mills has all of these different brands that you can quickly whip up. This is when I'm in a rush, and with just one box, I can make a lot of these little muffins, and you can put in tons of vegetables in the ground beef, and I make these broccoli sprout sliders. Super simple. And you can even make little pizza muffins with that. Instead of the regular pasta, I use lentil pasta. And I cooked for 26 people and pasta. And I just did a cooking demonstration and a retreat. And I had 26 people come. And I only used 4 boxes of this lentil pasta. That was $3 each. That's it. And I fed 26 people. So, and you just pack it with tons of vegetables and broccoli sprouts. And then now you're getting the big bang for your buck. But again, you can still have fun. I love to fry with, avocado oil or coconut oil or ghee, but I use chickpea flour or cassava flour. I'll fry my fish with 1/4 cup of cassava flour, 1 pasteurized eggs, a little bit of water to make that paste, some spices, dip the fish in there, shallow fry in a little bit of avocado oil, both sides. Delicious fish and chips. Oh my gosh. So here, do you see how we're still having a lot of fun, but we're using real ingredients? Especially we have I love my stuffing chicken with as many vegetables. So I take this cashew cream, and I'll put almond milk in there, and then I'll mix it in with tons of vegetables, and then I'll stuff the chicken. Easy. Stick it in the oven, bring it out, you're done. So these are things that you can do on a daily basis. And even with drinks, I love my blue spirulina. It is a little bit more costly, but I only use a little bit, so it lasts me like a year. It lasts me a long time. And you just mix that into your water with a little stevia or honey, or just leave it plain. And now it's like a blue drink for everybody to enjoy. It's so delicious. Delicious desserts, right? You make all the desserts at home. This is cheaper than going out and buying a dessert. Like this cake probably outside would have been like, if you ingredients and probably like $100, it probably cost me like 15, right? So that's what I'm trying to say, that like it's really easy, and you can use like the rainbow. Look how pretty that is. Like the rainbow cake and multiple layers. Again, I use almond flour crust. I use organic. You can make your own buttercream at home using maple sugar. So delicious. And you can color it with all these different things. These are simple things that I've done. Even my 1-year-old birthday cake that you can do, and just even use regular fruit. Beautiful, cost-effective, and delicious and nutritious. And then even you can supercharge, again, as many colors as you possibly can. Things that we normally don't use, like jicama and watermelon radishes, are beautiful and delicious and crunchy, and are packed with, sulfur-containing vegetables, and then also like the prebiotic fibers. So another thing that I love to do to take my normal recipes and really pump it up. And you're like, how did you take those like that? Oh, for all of those people, how did you make like just 4 boxes? And actually I brought home probably a box. So like I only use 3 boxes. So because of the fact that the sauce, I will put in all of the vegetables in that sauce, right? I'll take frozen cauliflower. I'll put in broccoli sprouts that you can even grow yourself. It's so easy. Or get in microgreens, and I'll put that in everything. And then I'll put in mushrooms, and then so as many vegetables I can go into the sauce, and that goes into the pasta. And even again, like we make cookies and cakes and pancakes, but I use like, again, we want make every bite count. How are we going to increase the phytonutrient power of each bite? Is sprouts, spices, and then also your like different things like Himalayan tartary buckwheat, fermented foods. I get like fermented vegetables. I could say that I make all these. I used to make it. It was it was very difficult. I didn't have enough time to do all that now. But guess what? You can go out and get all of these like farmers markets has all these here. So all the different colors of the rainbow, and I'll get it from the farmer's market, and then the kids will have that, making a smoothie with all the weirdest things that you possibly can get, like amla and zucchini and, aronia berries, acerola berries. We have, cauliflower, can all go, camu, maca, so increase the biodiversity by just putting it in a smoothie. And that's what I do. I stick everything, even some of their supplements. I even put liver and organ meats capsules. I'll dump it out into the smoothies, and then I'll serve it as a beautiful acai bowl. And the kids are like, so exciting, but not realizing they're like packing their gut microbiome with all these diversities. And then we know that spices have so many, are packed with polyphenols and and phytonutrients. And going out and about, we do the same thing. So I take my electric skillet. So if we're feeding a family of so many, I take my electric skillet everywhere we go. It's a ceramic. And yes, I even took it at the IFM at the Bellagio, and it's easy. Like we made eggs. I just bought a carton of eggs, and I would just mix that up. And I just slowly like simmer and just heat it. It's like, especially in a hotel room that doesn't even have it, like you can just slowly heat it like an iron, right? Slowly heat it, and it'll cook, and it'll warm up all your food. And because there's no flames, there's nothing. So it's very safe and so easy. And even I can stick it in my backpack and take it with me everywhere we go. It is so much fun, because guess what? Now I don't have to worry about running around and trying to find really healthy, nutritious meals. Along with, we do go out, we find like organic, and then find other places that are as ingredient as obsessed that we are. So again, we're still having, if you're noticing, I'm still connecting fun with real food. And that's why when the kids go out and about, they don't feel deprived. And I even take it to conferences. Yes, I am that girl that like, I want to show people the power of how much fun this is. So when Dr. Jeffrey Bland was here a couple months ago, I took food for all of them there because it was so easy and fun, and seeing the joy on people's faces makes me so happy. Even the kids packing their own foods. Zan is 13, but he has been packing his own food, vegetables, clean protein, healthy fats, eating the rainbow. They know all these things. And therefore, when you give the kids those autonomy, my job is to like cultivate the soil that they're growing up in, right? And the kids now make their own decisions on what they want to eat. And I make sure that it's obviously there.
Again, that help our brain and our body. When making school lunches, we concentrate on 2 words: real food.
So we want to make sure that you make every bite worth it. Even when you have a picky eater, find out what they do eat and make an easy swap, right? If they do chocolate chip cookies, I said, yes, keep them eating chocolate chip cookies, but let's swap it out with like almond flour and a different type of chocolate, maybe stick in some Himalayan tartar buckwheat in there. So, and then sometimes deficiencies can cause it, like zinc deficiencies. Accept slip-ups, we're all human. But the first place to start is make a list of your family's caregivers, anybody in your families or your own real food, like fake food that they absolutely love, and then find a healthier alternative. And then quickly in the next like 2 minutes, I'm just gonna really run by this because even detoxifying can be cost effective. We know that that's a huge piece of the puzzle. But when you eat real food, sleep, stress manage, gratitude, all of that can help optimize your, detoxification systems. Peeing, pooping, perspiring, all of that is cost effective. Moving your fluids, hot, cold showers, massage. I love putting houseplants in everybody's rooms, right? Those mother-in-law's tongue, like those are difficult to kill, right? So those little snake plants, I put them in every room of the house, making sure the kids get out, getting this early morning sunlight, social wise, like keeping people around them that are going to lift them up, not drag them down, making sure they're sleeping properly, talking to your families about the importance of sleep and helping them develop that routine. So just like we do it with kids, we should also be doing it with us. Stress management techniques, simple things that we can be incorporated. Remember, put all these things into your healing routine. Find a way to do this with your families. Help them find like getting together and prayer, meditation, going out in nature for hikes, belly breathing together. Simple things these are simple things that anybody can do. Because remember, our health is the biggest blessing that we have. And we need to educate our families that these are simple things that we can incorporate everyday daily routines and our healing routine together that can lower chronic inflammation, that is cost effective and doable. Because my mission is that if we can incorporate these things into our everyday daily routines, we can really optimize our health and wellness. Can you imagine where our children will be able to be and we'll be able to go, and humanity as a whole, if our brains and bodies and our physical, mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual, we're all functioning the way that they should, we'd be able to truly fly. And that's when I started. I'm like, if be the change you wish to see in the world. I started that with myself. I took that to my family, and now I'm helping them create that change and empower themselves. And now they love to talk about it. They've done over 150 episodes of their podcast, and their book is coming out next year. But remember that each one of us, as health coaches, as caregivers, as moms, we need to start with ourselves. Because if we show people that this is so much fun, it's doable, cost effective, this is something that any one of us can do. Simple things. And if we incorporate in ourselves, we can be that change that can create that ripple effect to heal the world from the inside out. And so this is where I've tried to make it, because I'm very passionate about all of this. I've tried to make this, as easy as I possibly can, is to have those resources for you guys and have it for your families. And then I'm like, oh, I have the adult books, I have the children book, I need the teen one. So hopefully the teen one is coming so I can get all walks of life to really create that life, that family of change makers. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for all those great tips. And there's definitely a lot of areas that health coaches can go and work with their clients in that area. So I'm going to start with some of the questions first. And of course, here at FMCA, we train in not only our coaching skills and the functional medicine principles, but also positive psychology. So we always want to be bringing the positive side of changes out, or celebrating the wins, and definitely not having fear or any type of shame around these types of lifestyle decisions, which can be difficult for some people, and changing that around. And so one of the questions that has come up is, what if a parent is coming to them as a coach to try to help their child, but the parent doesn't have that, living what you were talking about, the healing routine, or things that are, or they don't want to implement things for themselves. So do you have any tips around, I guess, approaching the parents and getting them to know that this is a family goal versus just a goal for their child?
Again, it does I have to tell you, it does not happen overnight. My husband was not completely on board when we first started. But I started to, again, educating. I think starting there, like just talking about it. And not just, and then like for me, I always found those replacements, like if somebody, of parent or somebody is not completely on board, I would be like, oh yeah, you can have this, but check this out too. Like, this is awesome. Just taste it. Like, it's really tasty. And then, or I'll just have it sitting there at the table, or, so educating and then showing them that example. And then slowly but surely, once if you're as excited about something, usually people slowly but surely come on board. They're like, okay, well, what is all this excitement about? Obviously, if somebody's like, oh, this sucks, like, look, taste this, like, I'm miserable, then no one's gonna want to join you. But when you're like, this is so much fun, let's do this, we're gonna do this together, it really does make a big difference of the positivity. And then slowly but surely getting them on board.
Yeah, and I think too, just maybe sometimes we as parents are, culturally, sometimes we're thought to think of others before we think of ourselves. And so giving a parent permission to think about themselves, and they're the captain of the ship, and so that they have to take care. I think that's also,
absolutely, start with yourself. That is where it really starts to then, we worry about everybody else, but we would have to start with ourselves first.
Yeah, absolutely. And then this is, so a lot of us in this community, we will start out and the kids are younger and they're getting a lot of great nutrition. And then they start going, maybe when they get older and they're going out and on their own, and they're maybe, even if they're educated, maybe not making some great choices. I know how we would do this from the coach approach, but just I don't know if you want to weigh in on that a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. So remember, I think the difference there is that child at least knows what to do, right? Versus a child that doesn't know. And so this is where, obviously there's only so much we as parents can do, and then they have to start to fly on their own, in their own wings, but they're going to have to make those mistakes. We made mistakes. And we came back, like we had to learn it ourselves. Like for me, I didn't even know. I just had to learn it myself and come back. But if you provide them with that base, like that baseline, they go out and do their things. One, you've provided them at least with the knowledge base that they have, right? That is powerful. And then two, that when they do come home, like they're able to talk, we've developed that relationship that they're like, if something were to happen, you've developed a relationship with that child. That is important, that you can then guide them. But also that mindfulness key is super important. That gratitude and mindfulness, because I find that they're less apt to make those decisions if they live in a world of like, everything sucks, I'm never gonna get better. Because if somebody was truly, if a child is truly grateful for the body that they have, they wouldn't be destroying it on a regular basis. But this is where, for me, like that food stuff, we don't even talk about really. They do it. That gratitude is what I really try to hone in on. Because if they can live a life of gratitude and positivity, they're apt to be making better decisions later. But so for me, like, they make their decisions, they're mindful, they'll come back, they're gonna have to make their mistakes, they're gonna be able to feel how red number 40 feels versus, you know, a beet, something colored with beet feels, and is it tasty. They're gonna have to make those decisions on their own.
Right.
But to help them, for me as a mother, as a caregiver, as a practitioner, I really hone on that mindfulness and that gratitude. Because if they have that, no matter what they deal with in the outside world, they'll be able to rein it in, if they're truly mindful.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's great. Yeah. And obviously we're, you know, that's very much keeping within the positive psychology type
Yep.
piece there, because that's the time, right? When they get older and they want to go out on their own and make some other decisions for
They
themselves.
want to do that. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. And I want to be mindful of your time. I know you need to head to another
I mean, I
meeting.
could do a
So
couple of questions, but
thank you. Okay, well, I know we have one is that people are asking for your recipe and if they're in your books.
yes, they are. So they are in my books. I have lots of them. So yeah, in the back, specifically for like the kids ones. Oh, but yeah, they're all in like the back sections of the ones that will work. And then on my Instagram, you can see what I do on a daily basis, because remember, I'm not perfect. Like, I'm not perfect, but I try to make things easy, doable, cost effective. Like yesterday, everybody had lentils and salad for dinner because I have been so busy working, helping. Our book is due to the publisher July 1st. So I've been working with the kids with the editing, and I didn't have time to cook. And I was like, okay, we're all gonna have lentils and a salad. You need the end, you know, and a sauerkraut, right? So that's what they had, with some fruit. So, but the thing is, simple things that you can incorporate every day, daily routine, are all in my book. Yes.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Well, thank you for being with us and sharing so many things that has worked well for your life. And I know that as coaches, we can be so instrumental in helping families make changes, especially if there is all of us typically do have something that we are hoping to improve in our health. And so I appreciate all the great information that you gave them today. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It'd be an honor, you guys. Thank you
Yeah.
guys so much for your time. It's such a huge honor and blessing.
Yes, thank you.